morning, everyone. Welcome to Boston College and the 8th Annual Boston Conference on Cybersecurity. As we do every year, if you could, please stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. All right, please be seated. All right, I invite Father Don McMillan of the Society of Jesus to come up here and give the invocation. Father Don has been with Boston College and BC High a combined 100 years. Are we close to that? He currently is the alumni chaplain over at Boston College High School. He's a dear friend, and welcome, Father.
I've been in this room for 100 different functions over the years. It's nice to be here with you today. So let us just take a moment, take a deep breath, recall that we are in the presence of God. Good and gracious God, we come before you today with grateful hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom as we gather for this important conference. We thank you for bringing us together, professionals, experts, and leaders dedicated to protecting and securing our digital world. Lord, we recognize the critical importance of cybersecurity in this age of rapid technological advancement. As we delve into discussions, share knowledge, and explore new strategies, we ask for your blessing on this conference. Grant us the clarity of mind to understand complex issues, the creativity to devise innovative solutions, and the determination to implement effective measures that safeguard our communities and nation. We pray for the protection of those who work tirelessly in the field of cybersecurity and law enforcement. Bless the members of the FBI and all security professionals who stand on the front lines defending against threats seen and unseen. Grant them strength, courage, and discernment in their challenging tasks. And may this conference be a place of collaboration and inspiration, fostering partnerships that will advance our collective mission to protect and secure. Help us to build a safer digital environment for all, ensuring privacy, security, and peace of mind. Guide our conversations and decisions with your wisdom. May we leave here better equipped to serve and protect, united in our commitment to the common good. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. All right, before we begin, I'd like to welcome Dean of our Law School here, Odette Manu. Also, Mike Lockhead, he's the Executive Vice President. And I'd like to do a really nice shout out for the interim dean over at Woods College, Akua Sar. Akua could not be with us today. She's been a great friend and a great supporter of everything you see here is thanks in part to Akua and the team over at Woods College, so thank you. Also, I want to acknowledge General Kennedy for making the trek here, and of course, the assistant director who's stepping in today. It's not a cyber program unless you have a backup plan, and we had a backup plan, and we're watching it in action right now. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the special agent in charge of FBI Boston, Jody Cohen. Before I introduce you, Jody, I'll make sure. Before I welcome you to the stage, I just want to note that Jody's been here now almost a year. This is her first Boston Conference on Cybersecurity, and she really, out in the field, you see it, she's all about collaboration with the FBI, government, private industry, and academia. I've seen it in practice. In February, you had a group of chief information security officers and cyber leaders down at FBI headquarters in Boston for an event there to talk about current issues that they were facing and how they could collaborate more with the FBI. And then just 2 weeks ago, you hosted all these senior leaders, lawyers in Boston for a conference call to discuss issues related to the Lockbit cyber criminal gang and ransomware. So you continue the collaboration. Welcome, and if I could, I'll introduce you by reading your biography so everyone knows who you are. All right. Jody Cohen serves as a special agent in charge of the FBI Boston Division. which includes Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. Previously, she served as a special agent in charge of the Louisville Field Office in Louisville, Kentucky. Ms. Cohen has held a variety of leadership, operational, and investigative positions throughout the FBI career. She entered on duty as a special agent in 2005 and was assigned to the New York Field Office, where she investigated white-collar crime, including healthcare fraud and violent crime on the Safe Streets Task Force. In 2014, Ms. Cohen was promoted to supervisory special agent and reported to the Washington Field Office to provide support to national security and criminal covert operations. In 2017, she served as a team leader in the inspection division at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. She oversaw agent-involved shooting investigations, national program reviews, and field office inspections. In 2018, Ms. Cohen was selected as the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the criminal branch in the Seattle Field Office. In 2020, Ms. Cohen served as the Chief of Staff for the Executive Assistant Director and Section Chief in the National Security Branch of FBI headquarters. In 2021, she was promoted to Special Agent in charge of the Louisville Field Office. So with that, Jody, I welcome you to the stage and welcome to Boston College.
Good morning. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for your continued partnership. It's truly an honor to be here today to kick off the 8th Annual Boston Conference on Cybersecurity. On behalf of my team, I want to thank everyone here at Boston College for the warm hospitality and bringing us all together to facilitate today's important discussion. I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy day and daily grind to join us this morning, and of course, AD Bryan Vorndran for flying up from FBI headquarters to deliver the keynote. The cyber threats we are facing today warrant a healthy discussion, one that we need to have at all levels with all industries. In my short time here in Boston, I have been really impressed by the work being done here and the strong partnerships that already exist. Everyone here is at risk of becoming a victim of a cybercrime or being targeted by a hostile nation state. Case in point, 4 months ago, FBI Boston led an international effort we called Operation Dying Ember, where we ran a court-authorized technical operation to block the Russian GRU from accessing more than 1,000 home and small business routers. They were belonging to unwitting victims. These routers were being used to commit and conceal a variety of crimes. And in fact, we stopped the GRU's access to a botnet it was piggybacking on to run cyber operations against countries around the world, including the US and allies in Europe. This is another example of Russian military intelligence weaponizing common devices and technologies for their own malicious purposes. And it's not just the Russians. China is leading the pack in an increasingly crowded field of nation-state actors. Cyber criminals from around the world are exploiting our ever-increasing dependency on computers and technology in our daily lives. The current cyber landscape consists of actors who have the tools to paralyze entire school systems, police departments, and private sector companies. This is neither acceptable nor sustainable. These incidents are occurring with increasing regularity and are taking a higher financial toll on all our victims. In fact, last year, Americans reported an unprecedented number of financial losses to our Internet Crimes Complaint Center of more than $12.5 billion. To put that in perspective, it's more than the FBI's entire budget. And we know for a fact that these crimes were significantly underreported. Victims in our area suffered a whopping $313 million in losses. And our adversaries are looking to exploit gaps in our intelligence and information security networks at every turn. The FBI's Cyber Task Force is committed to working with our partners, foreign and domestic, public and private, as well as academia, to close those gaps. When we combine what we know with what you guys are seeing and reporting to us, we can form a larger threat picture, which is critical to identifying those responsible and holding those accountable. We can also take away the tools these cyber criminals are using to attack us, secure the data that has been stolen, and prevent hackers from causing further harm. FBI Boston impacted these tools when we leveraged our international partnerships to dismantle a sophisticated cybercrime malware service known as Warzone Rat. This was a service that criminals bought and utilized to infect computers of victims here in Massachusetts, across the country, and around the world. Our investigation led to the indictments against 2 individuals, one in Malta and one in Nigeria. The Nigerian is currently convicted and serving a 3-year sentence in Nigeria, as we also seize several domains to prevent further victimization. In closing, I just want to thank all of you for being here today and taking part in this discussion, as well as I have team members here, so if please, during breaks and stuff, come around, talk with us. We would love to partner with you at any turn. Thank you. I will now introduce, sorry. Now it's my pleasure to hand it over to the Dean of BC's Law School, Odette Linnau.
Thank you, Jody, and good morning, everyone, and thank you also for your indulgence on the layered introductions that you're receiving this morning. Welcome to Gasson Hall. Let me add my welcome to Boston College and to the 8th Annual Boston Conference on Cybersecurity. Before introducing Assistant Director Vorndran, please let me offer also a special thank you to our partners in academia, in private sector, and in the government for your support of our programs here at Boston College, and especially for our Cybersecurity Master's program. I wanted to speak because during my time as Dean, which began in January 2023, I've had the privilege of speaking with many of our alumni leaders in firms, business, in public office, and in nonprofits. And the issue of cybersecurity comes up time and again as an incredibly important topic of concern. This is not my specific area of research, and so I was really stunned at how frequently it did come up. This important area, protecting information vital to enterprises, critical infrastructure, global financial markets, and private health data, the list really goes on, and it went on in all of my conversations. Creating an environment that protects the integrity of critical information and its underlying infrastructure is a real challenge, especially when we have bedrock commitments to the free exchange of ideas, to open access, to transparency, to privacy, and to protecting the equal dignity of all people at the center of our national values. Creating this kind of environment, able to balance all of these goals, is a crucial overarching goal for the professionals charged with establishing policy and procedures that others must follow. So cybersecurity has become a strategic priority and a core business and operational function, and there is increased need for holistic approaches to the challenges that this area poses. There are few professionals with the technical, analytical, communication, and managerial skills to develop and implement a unified strategy to address the constant and varying cyber threats that we face today. The collaborative approach of this conference, drawing attendees from many industries and sectors, really reflects the hallmark of BC's Masters in Cybersecurity Policy and Governance program, which prepares professionals to design, develop, implement cybersecurity strategies that defend against and also ensure recovery from the types of cyber attacks that Agent Cohen was talking about, and to bridge the communication gap between IT specialists, security professionals, regulators, and other key stakeholders, all of whom have very strong views and are very much involved. So today, we are delighted, very fortunate to welcome Bryan Vorndran, Assistant Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Cyber Division, to share his perspective on this important topic. Bryan Vorndran was named Assistant Director of the FBI's Cyber Division in March 2021, where he oversees the FBI's domestic and international investigations of cyber attacks and intrusions, and protects the country against threats to US networks, financial and intellectual property, and critical infrastructure. He began his career with the FBI as a special agent in 2003 and was assigned to the Washington field office, where he investigated criminal drug trafficking enterprises. In 2008, he spent 5 months as part of the International Contract Corruption Task Force in Afghanistan, and he was promoted to Supervisory Special Agent in 2009 and assigned to the FBI Counterterrorism Division, where he was promoted to Unit Chief in 2012. In 2013, Mr. Vorndran was named to lead the Washington field office's Joint Terrorism Task Force, and he was promoted to Assistant Special Agent in charge of the cyber and counterintelligence programs at the Baltimore field office in 2016. The next year, he was promoted to Chief of the Strategic Operations Section of the Counterterrorism Division. Mr. Vorndran was named a Deputy Assistant Director of the Criminal Investigative Division in 2018, where he oversaw programs intended to help dismantle transnational criminal organizations impacting the United States, combat violent and gang-related violent crimes, and counter crimes against children. And in 2019, Mr. Vorndran was named the special agent in charge of the New Orleans field office before being named to his current position overseeing the cyber division. We're honored to have him with us here today. Welcome to Boston College.
Good morning, everyone. There is a much, much shorter version of my bio that apparently did not make its way here. So I apologize about that. The first time I heard that one read, I almost fell off my chair, and I'm like, we gotta shorten this up. Before I start, I just wanted to apologize for Director Ray and for Deputy Director Abate not being here today. Deputy Director Abate was truly a last-minute cancellation for a very specific reason, and it is a very good reason. I'll just leave it at that, but I apologize on their behalf that they can't be here, so you are stuck with me. But I will do my very, very best to try to add value to the conversation, and I'll be able to stay for a few minutes afterwards if anyone has any questions. I do have some slides that I'm going to use here, if it works. There we go. Just to highlight a few really, really critical portions of my remarks. So I want to begin by briefly discussing how the FBI actually executes our strategy to disrupt cyber adversaries. So first, given our history, it should not be surprising that one of our core focuses is investigating and attributing cyber activity to disrupt cyber criminals and raise their cost to operate and to do their business. Bottom line is we want to punish cyber criminals and take them off the playing field. I'll give you a number. Over the last 3 years, we've averaged about 1 extradition from a foreign country per month. I'm not saying that's an astronomical number, but it is a meaningful number, and it continues to show our focus on the long game and traditional rule of law. Next, we must gather and operationalize domestic intelligence to bolster victim recovery, and we'll talk about victim engagement here more in a minute, and support operational activity, or as we say, we must pressure the common threats that we all face. And when we talk about pressuring these common threats by initiating joint and sequenced operations and on-network operations, you heard Jody Cohen reference Dying Ember, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here as well. We need to fight back against cyber adversaries from a domestic position and as a foothold for the intelligence community partners to engage, because we are able to catalyze action from right here in the United States. It truly is an all tools, all partners approach. And when I say all partners, I mean it. We look to partner with domestic and global partners and public and private partners to think about how we can all collectively come together to disrupt our adversaries. And the final way we execute the FBI's cyber strategy is perhaps the most important: victim engagement. We must provide rapid, comprehensive threat response and victim support in the wake of significant cyber intrusions. So real briefly, not to get all legal on you, but how are we allowed to actually do this work? So we have Title 18 authority to investigate computer intrusions, and almost every one of our operational disruptions is born from that authority. We also have specific authorities in Rule 41, which governs federal law enforcement search and seizure. And I think we would all agree that surreptitiously installed malware on U.S. infrastructure by Russia or China is an instrumentality of a crime, and that allows us to take specific action. We have specific counterintelligence authorities allowing FBI to be integrally involved in any nation-state campaigns targeting United States-based organizations. And then we have FISA authority, including Title I, Title III, and Section 702. Just briefly, FISA Title I and Title III governs the FBI's activities inside the United States, and FISA Section 702 governs FBI's collection outside of the United States. These authorities logically create two halves: the cyber criminal and the national security investigations portions of our portfolios. Okay. Almost all of the criminals developing sophisticated malware to enable ransomware attacks are based in Russian-speaking countries and operate as organized crime syndicates. similar to traditional organized crime elements. They are entrepreneurial and have successfully lowered the barriers to entry through ransomware as a service. There are 4 key services to their business model, which include infrastructure, communications, malware, and currency. Specific to the malware key service, highly skilled malware coders are developing more and more sophisticated malware. Their affiliate model allows less technically skilled criminals who are obscured from enterprise leaders to deploy highly sophisticated malware for their personal gain, while paying a percentage of their proceeds to the highly skilled coders. Any organization's goals should be to prevent ransomware attacks, and prevention efforts should be commensurate with acceptable downtime. If acceptable downtime is 1 day, increasing prevention efforts should be a high priority. Without effective steps taken in advance of a breach, any organization can find themselves wholly reliant on the honesty and integrity of bad actors to give them their data back. Let's talk briefly about target identification. Ransomware actors evaluate 3 things. First, who is easily targetable. Second, who is likely to pay based on brand damage. And finally, who will pay the most. Put in more industry standard terms, who doesn't have good net defense, who has a high willingness to pay, and who will suffer the most economic impact from the encryption of key systems over multiple days or weeks. Ransomware attacks are almost always coupled with data theft, which we refer to as double extortion, or data theft and harassment of the victims and company officials, which we refer to as triple extortion. Let me make one final note. When companies are extorted and choose to pay to prevent the leak of data, you are paying to prevent the release of that data in that moment. You're not in the future. Even if you get the data back from the criminals, you should assume maybe 1 day in the future it will be released, or 1 day in the future you will again be extorted to prevent the same leak of the same data. And when we are pursuing cyber criminals' finances, infrastructure, and actors, one area we are specifically focused on is disrupting those key services. One of the big developments from specialization is that malicious coders can write malware and then just sell access to other cyber criminals who want to use it to attack or infect victims' computer systems. By going after this key service, we can have a massive impact on cybercrime. Just a week ago, our field offices in Charlotte, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Los Angeles, Cleveland worked with the Defense Criminal Investigative Service and U.S. Secret Service, along with international partners from Denmark, France, Germany, and the Netherlands, to conduct a technical operation against 4 groups who offer malware as a service. In the first such operation that we've conducted. That operation is known as Operation Endgame, and it defeated multiple malware variants, took down more than 100 servers globally, and dismantled the infrastructure of 4 key pieces of global malware, which has been responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in damages and had even compromised the critical care online system a hospital needed to keep patients alive. Additionally, the 5 nations who conducted the technical operation worked with law enforcement in Portugal, Ukraine, and the UK, as well as with Europol and Eurojust, to arrest and interview suspects, conduct searches, and seize or take down servers all over the world. We're still gathering information from that operation, but it was already a huge success, just in removing the malware that those groups were selling to other criminals. This year, FBI also conducted a complex operation against Lockbit, if we want to be more specific in this audience, Lockbit 3.0, a huge operation that functioned with a ransomware as a service model. Lockbit was set up by a Russian coder named Dmitry Horshev. He maintains the image of a shadowy hacker using online aliases such as Putin Crab, NeuroWolf, and Lockbit Sup. But really, he is just a criminal, more caught up in the bureaucracy of managing his company than in any covert activities. Essentially, he licensed Lockbit ransomware, allowing hundreds of affiliate criminal groups to run shakedowns. In exchange for the use of his software, he got a 20% cut of all their proceeds whenever ransoms were collected from throughout the world. To help his affiliates succeed, he provided them with assistance through hosting and storage, by estimating optimal ransom demands, and by laundering cryptocurrency. He even offered discounts to high-volume customers. These lockbit scams run the way local thugs use to demand protection money from storefront businesses. Lockbit affiliates steal your data, lock it down, and demand a payment to return your access to it. Then if you pay the ransom, they return your access to your data. But they also keep a copy, and sometimes they demand a second payment to stop them from releasing your personal or proprietary information online. Since September of 2019, Horsechef has leased out his virus and enabled his affiliates to extort people all over the world. They have used Lockbit ransomware to attack people and organizations in financial services, food and agriculture, education, energy, government and emergency services, healthcare, manufacturing, and transportation. By 2022, Lockbit was the most deployed ransomware variant in the entire world. It was used by hundreds of unconnected affiliates and has been responsible for over 1,800 attacks in the United States and more than 2,400 attacks globally, causing billions of dollars of damage to victims. Disrupting Lockbit and its affiliates became a global effort, involving FBI work with agencies from 10 other countries, particularly the UK's National Crime Agency, over more than 3 years. In February, we announced the results of a major technical operation to disrupt and seize infrastructure, as well as to impose sanctions on Lockbit and its affiliates. We determined that Lockbit and its affiliates were still holding data, and they told Lockbit victims they had deleted after receiving ransom payments. Horsechef then tried to get us to go easy on him by turning on his competitors, naming other ransomware as a service operators. So it really is like dealing with an organized crime gang where the boss rolls over and asks for leniency. Obviously, we don't have plans to go easy on him. Last month, the Justice Department unsealed charges against him and 6 co-conspirators for fraud, extortion, and other crimes. In total, that included 26 charges against Horsechef himself. We will undoubtedly continue our pursuit of him and bring him back, do our best to bring him back to justice here in the United States. Additionally, from our ongoing disruption of Lockbit, we now have over 7,000 decryption keys and can help victims reclaim their data and get back online. We are reaching out to known Lockbit victims and encouraging anyone who suspects they were a victim to visit our Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov for further information. I want to briefly touch on some reflections about the cyber criminal ecosystem. Doing the basics well in a repeatable fashion is the single most important thing you can do as an organization. Well-established cybersecurity practices, including multi-factor authentication, password management, effective logging and log management, vulnerability and patch management, and maintaining air-gapped, encrypted, and current backups have to be done in a repeatable fashion by your entire organization to lower your risk. As part of the preparation, you will need to plan well, and I'll spend a little bit of time here. Those plans should include business continuity, crisis management, disaster recovery, and computer intrusion incident response. It is very important that these plans are not developed and exercised in isolation. It is also important for the plans to be exercised at the operational, the executive, and the board levels. The goal of your exercises should be twofold. First, to develop synergy amongst decision makers, and second, to refine your decision-making process. Based on our experience, there are 3 key areas of focus for your exercises. First, communications. Internal and external communications protocols should be considered compromised during your tabletop exercises and your plans, and you should have alternate plans to account for that. The second goal is related to a ransomware attack and focuses on the pay, no pay decision. If you suffer a ransomware attack, does your organization and its board have clear expectations about when you will and won't pay the ransom based on organizational impact or perhaps based on organizational values? The third goal of your exercise, and probably the most heavily debated, is whether you will or won't share with the United States government. And if you do share with the United States government, who will you choose to share with and for what reasons? And are those relationships in place? Again, the most well-prepared organizations have worked through every one of these variables and have scripted responses based on expected downtime. Having an information sharing plan included in your incident response plan can help you prepare to engage all of the stakeholders that you need to engage with as quickly as possible. And one final note about the relationships you'll need prior to an intrusion. Assuming you will retain outside counsel, what is the threshold for engaging outside counsel? What guidance have you agreed to with counsel about information sharing? Have you discussed what reports counsel will direct third-party incident response to draft? For example, internal eyes-only, privileged or non-privileged reports. Who will you retain for third-party incident response, and what is the threshold for engaging them? Do they know what reports they will be asked to write? The same question should apply for your insurance provider and negotiators. Specific to insurance providers, the gold standard is this: your retained counsel must know what's in your insurance policy prior to an intrusion. This will ensure efficiency in decision-making during a time of crisis. And from an FBI perspective, we're looking right now at how we more holistically engage with the insurance industry to ensure we're being a force multiplier benefiting victims. With initial access brokers, criminals have the flexibility to lease as much power as they need for their crimes and to hold on to them as long as they need them. Another business model for bots is to string them together into a massive and powerful botnet and then sell use of it. Just last week, the FBI, working with partners in Thailand, Singapore, and Germany, disrupted the world's largest botnet and what we refer to as a residential proxy service. The title of it was 9/11/S5. The botnet had victimized more than 19 million IP addresses in nearly 200 countries, including more than 600,000 in the United States alone. It was used to commit cyber attacks, large-scale fraud, child exploitation, harassment, bomb threats, and export violations. 9/11/S5 allegedly enabled cyber criminals to bypass financial fraud detection system and steal billions of dollars from financial institutions, credit card issuers, and federal lending programs. Most of the fraud enabled by the botnet came in the form of phony pandemic relief fund applications, taking advantage of government services at a time when the most vulnerable amongst us needed the help. That included more than 500,000 fraudulent unemployment applications and more than 47,000 fraudulent applications to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Our international technical operations seized the botnet's domains and $29 million in cryptocurrency. Additionally, the U.S. Treasury imposed sanctions on the botnet's administrator. Eunha Wang was arrested overseas and is facing extradition. When we talk about targeting by nation states, we'll switch gears here a little bit and talk about nation states. Our collective goal is a little bit different, and that goal should be early detection, containment, and eviction. China is the pacing threat. Other active nation states include Russia, Iran, and North Korea. For private sector companies, the state-sponsored threat encompasses corporate espionage, destructive attacks, influence operations, and intelligence collection, either through direct adversarial action or through collateral collection. As we saw in SolarWinds, the Russia's SVR surgically targeted a handful of U.S. government agencies through a sophisticated software-based supply chain compromise, and in doing so, compromised an additional 18,000 companies, all of whom were rendered vulnerable. Just flip to the next slide here. Okay. I want to briefly touch on third-party applications and the quote-unquote outsized risk they pose to sectors or industries. Imagine for a moment an entire sector or industry uses a niche but common third-party application to facilitate its business. This common third-party application is depicted by the red box on the screen. Is the red box on the screen? Yes, it is. Okay. Couldn't remember if I put animation in. From an adversary's perspective, targeting the application can allow criminals or nation states to have an outsized impact throughout an entire sector or industry. This is why within sectors and industries, we must use the term peer instead of competitors. In cyber, if you are being targeted, so are your sector and industry peers. Information sharing with your peers is absolutely critical for entire sectors and industries to be more resilient to cyber threats. Okay, let's get back to the threats themselves. Theft of intellectual property or personally identifiable information, specifically by China, remains highly probable. China then takes that IP or information and attempts to monetize it. We remain deeply concerned about the monetization of stolen IP from US-based organizations, especially for China's economic gain. We could provide hundreds of examples, but one discussed openly is China's attempted theft of COVID vaccine research from multiple US universities. The same is true in other areas of emerging tech and research, including AI and machine learning, quantum computing, and communications and clean energy. And I'll give you a broader target list a little bit later here this morning. We also remain very concerned about the skills being developed by Chinese state-affiliated proxies and actors and their moonlighting for personal gain. When actors are uncontrolled, they operate with fewer constraints and will undoubtedly seek to profit personally from off-the-record work. We saw China-sponsored hackers compromise United States state.gov domains for various reasons, including profit. They did this through false false unemployment claims. To effectuate this monetary gain, these China-sponsored hackers used stolen PII from US-based individuals. Next, let's briefly talk about hack and dumps. This is a term you don't hear too much about, but it's our adversaries' intent to compromise your network, acquire sensitive personal information, and then dump it onto the internet. This is often in an effort to promote competitive advantage. A simple question for you to ask your team is this: how long would it take for your organization to know there is sensitive information or disinformation on the internet about your organization that could influence others' view of your organization, or directly impact the short or long-term valuation of your company? We should also be assessing internally if we have the ability to detect when sensitive information is removed from each of our networks. Lastly, access and furtherance of attacks. In military circles, the equivalent is prepping the battlefield. It involves pre-positioning tools and capabilities to maximize advantage should a need for a future attack arise, or should specific red lines be crossed. This access is generally very difficult to detect as the adversary sits dormant after initial exploit, which emphasizes the importance of penetration testing and threat hunting work. This is a really, really important conversation for companies that sit within critical infrastructure sectors. And the goal is simple: early detection, containment, and eviction. It's a never-ending game of cat and mouse. I'm going to go off script here for just a second. When we talk about eviction of a nation-state adversary, specifically China, that is not a finite endpoint. That is a rinse and repeat cycle to continuously guarantee that the eviction is permanent. So just don't expect that because you evicted them from what you're seeing now, that they're actually permanently evicted. While cybercriminals' ecosystem and business models have changed and continue changing, and while our approach to disruption has changed with them, that does not mean the hostile nation-state threat from cyber has lessened in any way. Not that our efforts to disrupt hostile governments have slowed. For instance, in January, the FBI field office right here in Boston, and you heard Jody Cohen mention this, led Operation Diane Ember, an international effort against Russian military intelligence, the GRU. This is the same Russian agency behind NotPetya, and the same one that attacked the Ukrainian electric grid in 2015, attacked the Winter Olympics and Paralympics in 2018, and conducted attacks against the country of Georgia in 2019. Often, sophisticated actors like the GRU will use the same sort of botnets that criminals use, aiming to cover their tracks. By weaponizing common devices and technologies, the Russian government continues to blur the line between criminal activity and their operations. In this case, the GRU was taking advantage of a botnet to target the US government, clear defense contractors, NATO allies, and the Ukrainian aid shipment network. Our court-authorized techno-operation kicked the GRU off more than 1,000 home and small office routers belonging to unwitting victims across the world, including here in Massachusetts. A computer scientist and a case agent here in FBI Boston field office worked together to figure out how to remediate the routers, to get GRU malware off of them and to prevent reinfections. We removed surreptitiously installed malware from more than 400 routers here in the United States and hardened them against future GRU re-attacks. And our international counterparts did so about twice as many routers globally. This was an operation we could not have accomplished without corporate partners. I talked earlier about an all tools, all partners approach. And with Dying Ember, it was Microsoft and Shadow Server Foundation that were instrumental in our disruption. By killing the GRU's access to a botnet they were using to run cyber operations around the world, we both helped to protect unwitting businesses and individuals and put a dent in Russia's cyber-enabled intelligence operations. As the Russian government continues to be reckless in cyberspace, the Chinese government can only be characterized as relentless. The Chinese government has the largest cyber program in the world, and it continues to use sophisticated tools to gain access to places they should not be. You may have heard about a group of China-sponsored hackers known as Volt Typhoon. We found persistent Chinese government access inside our critical telecommunications, energy, water, and other critical infrastructure sectors here in the United States. They were hiding inside our network using tactics we refer to as living off the land, essentially exploiting built-in tools that already exist on victim networks to get their sinister job done. Tools that network defenders expect to see in use so they do not raise suspicions. Volt Typhoon also operated botnets to further conceal their malicious activity and the fact the intrusion was coming from China. All this with the goal of giving the Chinese government the ability to wait for just the right moment to deal a devastating blow. When Volt Typhoon's malware was discovered in critical infrastructure, the FBI joined our US and international partners beginning last spring and again this February to first author a series of joint cybersecurity advisories about what we saw, effectively calling out the hackers and sharing technical information victims can use to protect themselves. And then we followed up on those warnings with action aimed at the hackers. Working with our partners in the private sector, the FBI was able to identify the threat vector and lead a multi-agency court-authorized operation to not only remove Volt Typhoon malware from routers that had infected here in the United States, but also to sever their connection to that network and routers and prevent further reinfection. And while the recent Volt Typhoon story understandably caused a stir because of the sheer magnitude of the operation, the fact is the Chinese government's targeting of our critical infrastructure is both broad and unrelenting and will continue. So what about the future? For China, this has been and remains simple math. What do American organizations have that China wants to generate economic growth in China? You don't have to look any farther than China's 14th five-year plan published in English on the internet. Why is it published in English? So they can use every vector and sympathetic party to steal and support their growth. The Chinese want intellectual property associated with information technology, biotech, new energy, new materials, high-end equipment, new energy vehicles, quantum, environmental protection, aerospace, marine equipment, and other areas of focus. That is not my list, that is their list, that's published. FBI is also very focused on current SVR activity and the ransomware affiliate group we refer to broadly as Scattered Spider. And other current areas of focus include artificial intelligence and machine learning, and certainly doing everything we can to ensure the 2024 general election is secure. As I close here today, I want to reflect on a few things. All threats evolve, and our collective strategies need to evolve with them. The FBI had its most prolific year in terms of disruptions ever of cyber adversaries in 2023, something we're very proud of. But we should all remember we face extremely capable adversaries. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and with Russian-based cyber criminals who have safe haven status in Russia. We should also remember that 85 to 90% of the most powerful cyber threat intelligence lies in the hands of those other than the US government, all of you. Which brings me to my final point about partnerships. Not one of our past or future disruptions is possible without exceptional partnerships. We have to realize and execute upon this theme together, that we are in this together, we are stronger together. My ask of each of you today is this. Please be an ambassador for this message. We need everyone, private industry, nonprofits, academia, the U.S. government, in the boat, rowing in the same direction every day. This is how we will be most effective. This one's hard for me. And while I'm not a Celtics fan, since I am from Philadelphia, and I was at the last Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Patriots, I can absolutely appreciate a great sports town because I'm from one, and Boston is certainly that. It's my understanding that the Celtics have a quote-unquote win song. So as a fellow sports fan to a lot of other fellow sports fans, I hope they play All I Do Is Win by DJ Khaled in Boston at least 4 times between now and June 23rd, okay? Thank you for your time today.
All right, well, thank you, sir, and thank you again for on short notice, coming up here and making the trek up here to Boston College. We have a gift for you, and as we talked about last year, it's really tough when we have representatives from the government. We want to buy you something nice, and if we buy you something nice, you can't keep it, and that's problematic. So last year we came up with a scheme where I went to the bookstore and I used my VA discount, disabled veteran discount, parent discount, employee discount, and AARP discount, for the and it worked great. And we were going to use that. We thought we had the system beat, and I went to the bookstore, and they said, no, you're the guy, only one discount. So what I did is I followed your advice. I got my incident response team together. We reached out to outside counsel, and lo and behold, they filed a temporary injunction against the bookstore, and it worked out great for us. And things settled, and we were able to get you this shirt at no cost. Here you go, sir. And there's more to it, too. The lawyers left you a little gift, too. And it looks like you owe us. And I joke on that. We actually owe you. And truly, we owe you, we owe Jody, and we owe everyone at the FBI for such a team collaboration. It's been fantastic. It's been 8 years, and we do appreciate everything you do with us, and we look forward to continued collaboration. So with that, sir, thank you so much, and we hope you come back again. All right. There you go.